Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video we are going to be replicating this animation on this landing page header section. As you can see how the text transitions and the elements around the image, how they transition on reloading the screen. So this is what we are going to be replicating in our designs today. And we have here the redesign of the landing page we just saw, which was completely redesigned by Rukayat Omolola. I actually saw a tweet about these designs and I was inspired to just make the header section pop a little bit and show you guys how to achieve an animation like the one we just saw. And also don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you get more videos like this. So here we have the entire section. I'm just going to rename it to GIF section. So that's where we'll be doing the animation on the image. You can see we have all the elements that comprises the image in this particular frame. We have three vectors. I'm just going to quickly rename that to vector 1 and vector 2. We also have an ellipse, the rounded pin at the top right. We also have two images that looks like a model, and there is this invisible card. I'm just going to take this out. It's not supposed to be part of this. I'm going to delete that. Then we have the main image and also a rectangle at the back. So these are the components of what we're going to be animating. What I'm going to do right now is to play it, and you can see how it looks like on the when we play the prototype. This is exactly what it is. So we want to create the animation that comes when we initially load this very page, just like it is here. I'm just quickly going to reload it, and we just want to achieve something very similar to this. Now back to our designs. To achieve that, I'm just quickly going to duplicate this GIF section here where we want to create all the animation effects on, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is to select the entire frame and head over to Components button and click on Create Components. I'm also going to add the variants to make them 2 on the board, and I'm going to zoom in so that we can create the states for the very first component set. For this very first one, I'm just going to place the rectangle at the back of the image and edit the height to fit exactly the height of the image, because I want some kind of transition where the rectangle grows to what it is on the second component set. That is the second variant actually. So as you can see here, I'm just going to adjust the edge of the rectangle a little bit so that it has exactly the same radius with the edge of the image, which I think is 20 here to make it exactly. So I'm just going to fit the rectangle at the back of the image to create that growing effect. Then what I'm going to do next is to select all the vector and images that are on this main image section here. So all these child components or elements that are around the image here, I'm just going to select every single one of them and I'm going to delete them. I'm going to be putting them back, but for now I'm just going to delete them so that we have just the image and the rectangle at the back. Then for the second variant, I'm going to select all the elements around the image, the vectors and the two small images we have, and I'm going to use the arrow down key to move all of them down, because I want to create an animating effect where they all pop up and fade up at the same time. So the initial state, they are going to be down. I'm going to go back to the first variant and I'm going to paste them in. I'm just going to click on the entire frame and click paste to paste them in. Then I'm going to change the pass through to 0, which is the opacity. So they are there, they're in the same position where they are on the second variant, but with an opacity of 0. I'm also going to give the main image and rectangle the same opacity of 0, which is a pass-through of 0, so that there is a fade-in effect from the first variant to the second variant. So for this second variant, I'm also going to select every single one of them, and I'm going to also change the opacity, which is the pass-through, to 0, right? Because I want them to fade in, I want them to appear one after the other. So from the first variant to the second variant, what we want to be visible is just the image and the rectangle. So that's enough for the first for the second variant. Now for the third variant, we want to show one of the images, which is the one at the top left corner, right? So I'm going to select the third variant, and I'm going to select that particular image, which is this one right here, and I'm going to change the opacity from 0. Now I'm going to change it back to 100% so that it's visible. Now we can see it's here. Then I'm going to use the arrow up key to move it up so that once it appears, it also moves up, so it fades in and moves up at the same time. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the image on the bottom right, which is this image here. I'm going to change the opacity to 100%, and I'm going to use the arrow up key to move it up a little bit, so that once you're done with the transition on the first image pop up, then this second one pops in. The third animation, or the fourth variant we are going to be having, is for the ellipse, which is the third element that is going to be popping up on this image. So I'm going to select it, change the pass through to 100%, and I'm going to move it up a little bit, just like I've been doing for the rest of the components. Then for the fifth variant, I'm just going to select the rest elements that are left, which is the shape at the top right and the one at the bottom, the shape at the top left and the one at the bottom left. I'm going to increase the opacity to 0. I'm then going to move both of them up at the same time because I want their animation to come simultaneously. Now that I have all these states, the next thing we want to do is transition between them with the use of after delay and smart animate. So I'm going to switch to the prototype section, connect the first dots. For this, I want it to be an after delay of 0 millisecond because I want the animations to start immediately. I'm going to change it to smart animate, leave it at ease out. Then I'm going to change the transition time, which is the animation time, to 1000 millisecond. So once I've done that, I'm going to switch to the second one. I'm going to do the same thing. After delay, it's going to be 0 millisecond. I'm going to switch, still leave it at ease out, and I'm going to change the animation time to 400 millisecond. I'm going to do the same thing for this smart animate. I'm going to leave it at 400 millisecond, but the after delay has to be 0 millisecond, which is 1 millisecond, just so that it happens immediately. I'm going to keep doing it for this. I'm still going to use an after delay 0 millisecond, and I'm going to leave the animating time to 400 millisecond. Then we are going to transition to the very last state, which we're also going to do the same thing, and after delay 0 millisecond, and the smart animate, which is transition time, I'm just going to increase it up a little bit. So now we have all these states and we have our component ready. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to switch to the design panel. I'm going to copy this first one here, which is the same thing as copying the instance of our component. I'm going to come to the section where we are actually going to use it. Then I'm going to right click on the existing image we have here, and I'm going to use paste to replace so that I can paste it in the exact location. Now once we play our prototype and restart it, we can see this transition on the image section here, and this comes out really nice. If you're trying to achieve something different, obviously you can use a different time for your animations just to achieve whatever it is you're looking to achieve, but for this, I think this is perfectly fine. So the next thing we're going to be working on is the animation on the text section. So basically we just want to create a transition between the texts and make them slide in one after the other. So we are going to start with this header text here. I'm just going to move to the right to have enough space. I'm going to select the text, hold Alt and duplicate the text to the other part of the screen. I then want to go ahead to break the text into different parts. The first part will be the better parts. Then I'm also going to select the second part, and I'm going to cut it from the sentence and I'm going to paste it differently. I'm then going to do that for the last part that I'll be using on the last part of the text. So now we have our text broken down into 3 different parts. The next thing we're going to do is make each of them a frame. I'm going to select the first one and frame selection. I'm also going to do that for the second text. I'm going to frame selection and do that for the third text. Now we have all 3 texts in a frame. I'm also going to check the clip content option in the frame because we want to hide the content in the frame. Then I'm going to select the text in the frame, which is the main content. I'm going to select all 3 of them, and I'm going to use the arrow down key to move them downwards. So I'm going to press and hold until I can no longer see each of the text. Since our frame is clipped content, we won't see the contents that overflow, and that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm using the frame just like a mask. So on each of this frame, right, we want to create like a transition or animation in which the text just pops up and moves up and becomes visible. To do that, I'm going to make that frame a component and create another variant of the frame. Then in the second variant, I want the text to be back in its normal position. So I'm going to edit the y-axis to 0 so that the text is now visible. Now you can see that for our second variant, we can see the text because I've returned it back to the frame. I'm going to do that for the second text that we're animating. I'm going to make it a component, add a variant, and on the second variant, I'm going to bring the text to be visible back by changing the y-axis to be 0. Once I'm done with this for the second one, I'm going to do the same thing for the third. I'm going to make it a component, add another variant, and I'm going to select the content in it and use the arrow key to move it up so that it's visible. Now basically what we are trying to do is to create an animation or a transition from the first frame or the first variant to the second variant on all these layers of text. I'm going to start with the first one. I'm going to switch to the prototype mode. I'm going to connect the wires from the first variant to the second variant. It's definitely going to be an after delay. I'm going to make it 100 millisecond after delay, and I'm going to change the animation from instant to smart animate. And for the smart animate timer, I think I'm just going to make it 1000 milliseconds, which is what I'm going to be using for all the transitions of the text. I'm going to do the same thing for the second text layer. I'm going to connect the wires from the first variant to the second variant. I'm going to set an after delay to like 600 milliseconds because I want the first transition to almost fade off before this one comes in. Since the delay timer is 1000, I want it by 600 milliseconds we can see it. I'm going to do the same thing for the third layer of text, and after delay, but this I'm going to make it after 1000 milliseconds so that the 2 initial text must have been visible before we show the last layer of text. After that, another thing I would like to do is to make this our invisible text at opacity 0 so that as it's sliding in, it's also fading in, like it's also fading in here. So I'm going to set all the invisible text to 0% in the pass-through. I'm going to give it a pass-through of 0% so that by the time it gets to the second variant, it animates from 0 to 100%. And then I want to replace our components, but I'm not going to be using the default components and the default variants. I'm going to be using the second variant just so that I can properly position where they are at on the board. So I'm going to pick the second variant, copy the instance of that component, and I'm just going to place it exactly where the initial text was. I'm then going to select all 3 of these text layers that I just pasted on the board, and I'm going to group them together. After grouping all 3 of these together, I'm going to hit Ctrl X or Command X to cut it so that it's not longer there, and I'm going to move the initial text that's there out of the board. I'm then going to click on the entire frame and click Ctrl V to paste it back in the exact position where I just copied it from. The next we want to do is to work on this text, this subtext here. We want to basically do the same thing. So once we are done with the animation and the header, the subtext should also animate. So to do that, I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to frame the selection just like we did for others. Once I've done that, I'm going to clip its content. I'm then going to make this entire section a component, right? I'm going to make it a component, but before that I'm going to hide it because the first variant of the components will be the hidden text. I'm then going to make it a component and add another variant, and for the variant I'm just going to make the text visible back. So I'm going to change the y-axis to 0 so that it positions back where it was initially. Then I'm going to switch to the prototype tab and create an interaction between the two variants in this section, just like how we've been doing. It's going to be an after delay. I want it to come after the header text I've animated, so I'm going to put it at 1500 milliseconds. It's going to be a smart animate, and for the smart animation I'm just going to give it 1000 milliseconds, just like we've done for other text. Now that we are done with this, I'm just going to replace this text component where it should be. I'm going to position it back on the actual design where it should be. But just as you've noticed, all the text here are supposed to transition from the first variant to the second variant, and all the options we have here are the second variants already. This is done just so that we can see it while we are positioning it on the board. So I'm going to switch back to the design, and I'm going to switch all of them back to the default variant, and we won't see them because that's the default state. The initial state is that they won't be visible. So I'm going to change all the states back to the default state. After that, I think we are perfectly done with our designs, and we want to see what the final outcome looks like. I'm going to select the board and click on the play icon to show the prototype of what we just did. So this is what it looks like, guys. The transition is coming out, but it's coming out a little slow because I think my machine is a little slow right now. But I noticed that both the text and the image are coming simultaneously, but I don't want that. I want the text to complete its animation before the image. So I'm going to go to the first variant in the image, and I'm going to set its after delay from 1 millisecond, and I'm going to set it to 2000 milliseconds. I think after 2 seconds our text animation should be completed. Then we can have the animations for our image section. So now we have the text animating, then the image section comes in. And this is it, guys. This is how to create an animation that looks similar to this. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you get more videos like this. Bye.